Humans arrived on the battlefield and began killing aliens with the cold fury only Earthlings possess. Just moments ago, the Creek fleet had been on the brink of total annihilation at the hands of the despicable Zeons. Dozens of once proud Creek ships were torn apart by a relentless enemy. The battlefield was reduced to drifting wreckage, venting bodies and debris. Captain Zarek gripped his command console in grim despair as damage reports flooded in. Weapons offline, shields failing, hull breaches on every deck. Rescuing any remnants of his decimated fleet seemed impossible. Suddenly, a deep voice crackled over the communications channel. "This is Captain Hassan Reeves of the United Earth Ship Defiant. We hear you, Creek. Help is on the way. Hold for reinforcements." A massive human dreadnought emerged from the warp, its distortion cannons already spitting precise fire at the Zeon ships. Perhaps today would not be the day the Creek fell after all, as long as those they once called machines were here to even the odds. Emperor Saren reclined on his command throne, a sneer spreading across his scaly face as he watched the pathetic Creek fleet disintegrate under a barrage of plasma torpedoes. This was the moment he had been waiting for, the chance to seize the Creek territories. The reptilian overlord had made meticulous preparations for this day, every credit he could spare. The brightest Zorgan scientists working tirelessly to perfect shielding technology that could withstand anything short of a supernova, munitions factories producing missiles with the power to split continents, shipyards assembling massive vessels that blotted out the stars. Saren watched the fruits of his labor unfold in the destruction displayed on his view screen. Creek cruisers shattered into clouds of metal fragments with each strike. Their return fire failed harmlessly against Zeon defenses. It was like watching insects trying to fight a blast furnace. A smile spread across Saren's face. It wouldn't be long before the Creek were nothing more than a footnote in the history of his conquests, an example to the rest of the galaxy of what happened to those who opposed Zorgan power. The Emperor was about to turn his chair to accept a goblet of Mamoni wine from a concubine when his censor officer spoke. "Your Excellency, a new contact has arrived on the battlefield. Its markings and electronic signature are unlike anything we've encountered." Saren returned to the main screen. Emerging from the warp was a monumental battleship that dwarfed even the largest Zeon dreadnoughts. It bristled with enough weapons to arm an entire fleet by itself. "What the hell is that?" Saren barked. "Hail them immediately." The communications officer stabbed at his console. "This is Captain Hassan Reeves of the United Earth Ship Defiant. Attacking the Creek was a big mistake, Zorgan bastards. Let's see how you like fighting someone who can hit back." As soon as the human finished speaking, the new warship opened fire on the nearest Zeon frigate with a full alpha strike. Massive railguns and beam weapons converged on the target. Impossible as it seemed, the frigate's shields failed instantly, and its hull melted like cheap plastic. As Saren watched in horror, the human ship plunged deeper into his lines, its weapons carving through his prized armada like a demon's claws through flesh. Zeon shields, the product of decades of refinement, couldn't withstand more than a hit or two. The Emperor leapt from his throne and stormed into the bridge's artillery section. He grabbed the battery commander by the back of his head. "Focus all forward lances on that human monstrosity." Immediately, his ships reoriented ponderously to face the human vessel. Saren felt his guts sink like a stone. The realization hit him with the force of an asteroid impact. He had miscalculated, badly. These humans were far more dangerous than he had ever imagined. His empire had finally met an enemy that might be its equal. Captain Hassan Reeves stood on the bridge of the Defiant, hands clasped behind his back, his brow furrowed in concentration. The view screen displayed the chaotic swirl of ships locked in bitter combat, hulls flaring and exploding with each exchange of fire. The Creek fleet was in bad shape, its formations shattered, ships blinking out rapidly. "Status report," Hassan barked. His first officer consulted his terminal. "The Zeon fleet is pressing its attack. The Creek have lost 70% of their ships. They won't last much longer at this rate." Hassan nodded grimly. When Earth had intercepted the Creek's faint distress call, there had been heated debate in Terran High Command about whether to get involved. Humanity was still new to the galactic stage, and many in the Admiralty were hesitant to wade into an alien war. But Hassan had pushed hard for intervention. He understood the strategic value of the Creek. They had a reputation as hard-working, trade-focused people, with a network of colonies and mining outposts scattered across this region of space. Moreover, they shared a border with Earth's fledgling colony in the Oran Cloud. If the expansionist Zorgan Empire wiped them out and claimed their territory, it would put Earth's holdings at risk. Hassan had stressed the threat of Zorgan aggression and the importance of protecting a species unable to defend itself. Those arguments had won the day. The Defiant had been sent at flank speed to the Creek home system, arriving just as the Zorgans began their assault. Now, they watched the Zorgans break under their guns. Hassan allowed himself a quick fist pump. Sending the Defiant had been the right call. The Defiant was the most advanced ship in Earth Space Forces, a sleek, deadly battleship that outclassed anything else on the battlefield. Its triple-armored hull shrugged off the few laser bursts that connected, while its own banks of phase cannons and neutron torpedoes punched through Xian shields as if they were paper. The lizards clearly had never encountered human weapons before and had nothing to counter them. "Captain, the Xian flagship is changing course. Heading straight for us," the sensor officer reported. Hassan leaned forward in his command chair. It seemed the Xian commander had finally realized the humans were the real threat. He's going to try to take the Defiant out of the fight. "Helm, close to engage, but keep them moving. Don't let them get a beat on us," Hassan ordered. The maneuvering thrusters fired, and the mighty Defiant swung its bow toward the approaching Xian warship, even as its guns continued to hammer the enemy fleet. Hassan pressed a calm button on his armrest. "Sarah, I need the neutron guns prepped for a full discharge. Divert power from the shield array if necessary. When that bastard's in range, I want to hit him hard." "Aye, Captain," Commander Thompson replied briskly, hunched over her console, fingers flying as she worked to carry out his orders. The bridge tensed like a coiled spring as the Xian flagship bore down on them, spitting fire from a dozen different ports along its hull. It was an ugly thing, with a spiked prow and a bulbous section that glowed like a red lantern. Nearly twice the size of the Defiant, it began erupting bright yellow energy beams the moment it entered extreme range. The human shields flared but held under the assault, flickering only weakly. A low, rising hum began to build from somewhere deep within the Defiant. The neutron guns were charging, capacitors greedily sucking up every spare, what a reactor output to energize their magnetic accelerator coils. Hassan watched the holographic range indicator, mentally urging the Zorgan ship to close the distance faster. His fingers tightened on his armrests as the icon neared optimal firing position. "Almost there. Fire!" Hassan roared. A brilliant blue-white beam lands from the Defiant's forward ports, striking the Zorgan flagship head-on. The alien ship's shields flared, struggling to repel the neutron stream for a single second before failing spectacularly. The beam punched cleanly through the center of the massive vessel, vaporizing armored decks and crew, exiting the other side in a shower of molten metal. For a moment, the two halves of the bisected warship hung motionless in space. Then, a series of internal explosions tore them apart, scattering debris into the void. Cheers erupted on the Defiant's bridge as the Zorgan flagship disintegrated. But Hassan stifled any premature celebration with a brusque wave of his hand. "We may have cut off the snake's head, but the rest of the Zorgan fleet is still out there, and Earth has no reinforcements within reach. Open a fleet-wide channel." He tapped the comm. "This is Captain Reeves to all Creek ships. Form up on the Defiant. Maintain a defensive sphere formation. Damage Creek cruisers and frigates, vending atmosphere from broken hulls. Maneuver to cluster tightly around the human ship. Together, They presented a concentrated defensive posture, allowing the Creek ships to shelter behind the Defiant shields while adding their remaining firepower to its own. Hassan turned to Sarah, his expression hardening into the determined mask that had seen him through 100 battles and earned him his command. Coordinated tactical fire solutions with the Creek. What do we need to whittle down the Zeon numbers? Sarah was already bent over her console, conferring quickly with the bridge officers and the Creek via the comlink. She acknowledged his order with a quick nod. Hassan leaned back in his chair, watching as the Zeon fleet regrouped for another pass. Though bloodied, they were not beaten. Even with their flagship destroyed, the Lizards still vastly outnumbered the ragged human Creek formation. It was going to be a slugfest, trading casualties until one side had enough and withdrew. And when it came to bloody, protracted space battles, there was no one in the galaxy better suited for it than humans. They would make the Zorgans pay in blood for every inch of space. The Defiant would lead the charge. Captain Zarek gripped the arms of his command chair as another volley of plasma torpedoes rocked his battered cruiser. Smoke billowed from broken conduits, and the lights flickered ominously. He coughed, trying to see through the haze on his view screen, which showed nothing but the twisted wreckage of once proud Creek ships, reduced to drifting hulks by the relentless Zeon assault. This was the end, Zarek thought grimly. The Creek had fought valiantly, but they were simply outmatched. The Zorgans had come with a massive fleet, armed with weapons that cut through Creek shields like a hot knife through butter. Zarek had watched his comrades fall one by one, their ships blossoming into brief, fiery stars before being snuffed out forever. It seemed he would soon join them. His weapons were depleted, his engines failing. All he could do was stare death in the face and wait for the final blow. Suddenly, his sensor officers shouted over the screech of twisting metal and venting atmosphere. "Sir, new contact emerging from the warp." "It's enormous." Zarek turned his head, expecting to see another Zorgan monstrosity coming to finish them off. Instead, he saw a ship unlike any he had ever encountered. It was sleek and predatory, with sharp angles and bristling weapon batteries. And it was huge, dwarfing even the largest Zorgan dreadnoughts. As Zarek watched in awe, the newcomer opened fire. Its weapons lashed out with searing beams of light that punched through Zorgan hulls as if they were paper. Ships exploded under the assault. It was like watching a child smash toy boats. Incoming transmission from the unknown ship, his calm officer reported, her voice trembling. Zarek felt stunned. Put it through? A human face filled the screen. A man with sharp features and eyes that seemed to burn with an inner fire. "This is Captain Hassan Reeves of the United Earth ship Defiant," the human said, his voice calm and confident. "We stand with the Creek against Zorgan aggression. All ships, form up on us. We'll take the fight to them." Zarek felt his jaw drop. The humans. He had heard stories about them, of course. Everyone had. A young race, new to the galactic stage, but technologically advanced, with ships and weapons beyond anything the Creek possessed. He had always dismissed those stories as exaggerations, tall tales born of too much Altrian whiskey. Surely no upstart species could be as powerful as the rumors claimed. But now, seeing the human ship Defiant in action, Zarek realized how wrong he had been, and he was grateful.